Today we're talking to Sam Dickinson, former British junior champion who's represented Great Britain at the ITU World Championships, and Claire Ahmed, who competed in her first triathlon last year. Sam, 100 days until the World Triathlon Championships here in Leeds. How excited are you?
I'm buzzing. I can't wait to get stuck in.
I mean, for you, this is a big thing, isn't it? Because it's something that you've come and watched over the years before you participated in it.
Yeah, so I came to Leeds as a student and went down into the town centre to watch the race for the last 4 years when it was in Leeds, and it was just so inspiring to see them all bomb it around Leeds, and I can't believe my time finally came last year to get involved.
That's the thing, now you're one of those inspirations. You are one of those people who people will be stood watching going, I want to be like him. That's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, it's great to inspire the kids, because you were one of them. So yeah, it's an absolute honour, to be honest.
And Claire, it was your first triathlon here last year, wasn't it? But you've come from a very different background and have a different approach towards it, don't you?
Yeah, I had started getting into fitness to really help with my own mental health, and the Leeds Triathlon was fantastic. It was just such a great atmosphere, such a buzz. Coming from adding swimming in just to prevent injuries to actually now doing a triathlon was amazing. It was great. It's such a good venue to do it into.
And obviously, Sam, you do this. This is your life, isn't it? But for you, Claire, you have a slightly different approach because you're a mother of two. You have a life outside of it. How do you juggle that?
Yeah, well, thankfully we have a local triathlon club that I joined, and they're really encouraging. So it was just really a matter of getting the training in, getting some swimming training in, a little bit of cycling and some running. I didn't need much equipment. I borrowed my husband's old mountain bike. I had my runners and swimsuit, and off I went.
I think that's amazing, because it shows people like me just how inclusive this sport is, that actually you don't have to be an elite to get involved, do you?
No, not at all, not at all. Anyone can start, and I think a lot of people are put off by thinking you need a lot of equipment, but to get going, you don't need much. Obviously, you can go down the rabbit hole and then start spending a lot of money, but it's great, just get going.
Absolutely. And Sam, for anybody who hasn't experienced it here at Roundhay, just describe what this is going to look like and feel like in 100 days' time.
So it's actually, although we're in the same place, it looks so different. The whole place is decked out with a nice blue carpet, especially for the start pontoons just behind us here, where we're stood. There's barriers on the bike course. There's a grandstand where all the crowd can get involved. And if I remember correctly, last year there was about 3 or 4 people deep everywhere around the course. So it's an absolute atmosphere, and it just makes it one of the best races in the world. Yeah,
I can imagine as well that when you're actually participating, that really must spur you on, knowing that it's like this festival vibe around you, Claire.
It really was. Right from when I parked up, all the stewards, all the marshals, everyone was so upbeat. Then you've got the crowds on top of that, so it was fantastic. Even all the participants, everyone was buzzing, and with the park so full, yeah, you had all the encouragement you needed.
And before you actually start the race, Sam, what are you thinking? How are you feeling?
It is quite nervous, to be honest. But you know, when you've done a few triathlons, it does get a little bit easier, because you know what you're doing. But luckily last year I didn't know all of my friends would turn up, and as I was racing for the race just behind me, they all called out to me, and they'd all dyed their hair ginger, same as me, and it just got me buzzing. It just got me so up for it, and it's an experience I hope everyone gets a chance to experience soon.
That is amazing. That's some dedication, isn't it?
Yeah, perfect.
So I want to talk about transitions, because I'm fascinated by this part, Sam, and I think we are somewhere in the vicinity of exactly where it happens, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. So over my right shoulder is swim exit, and we run down a blue carpet behind us now to the actual transition area, which is just in front of us, where you see all the racks of bikes lining up, and then we head off up that big hill.
And how does it work exactly, the transition?
So you come out of the swim, you've got a wetsuit on if it's cold, like it usually is in Leeds, and a hat and goggles. What you have to do is whip your hat and goggles off, and then take your wetsuit off, which takes some skill and you can get it wrong, but you whip your wetsuit off, so you've just got your tri-suit on, that all has to go in a box, and if it goes outside the box, you get a penalty. So make sure it goes in the box. And then you grab your bike helmet off your bike, put your helmet on, because you can't touch your bike before you put your helmet on because of safety. And then you've got to run with your bike to the mount line, which is a big green line at the end of transition, which signals that you're allowed to jump on your bike. And once you can do that, you then have to get your feet in your shoes when you're on the bike and head up that big hill at the same time. And the race is on.
That bit sounds like a race in itself for me. I feel exhausted just listening to that. It must require a lot of practice to get that down to a fine art.
Yeah, you do. You can certainly not win a race in transition, but you can lose it if one of those things goes wrong. So we definitely incorporate it into our weekly training to make sure that we really nail that fourth discipline.
And Claire, how have you found the transition part of it?
The transition bit was great because obviously you've got everybody cheering for you at that part. Quickly, I managed to get out of the water quickly, run through to transition, but I made a mistake. I made a big boo-boo with it being my first open water triathlon, first time taking off a wetsuit. I took off my timing chip and I forgot to put it back on. So while I was out on the bike, I realised this and I got it back on for my run, but it's a lesson learned for future. So.
And it just goes to show, really, it is all about that practice, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And people say, you know, as Sam said, it's a fourth discipline. So this year I'll be out in my garden practicing beforehand.
I love it, Claire. And for you, Sam, before, you know, in the build-up to the event, how much do you practice just the transition alone?
So we actually incorporate the transition training on the back of our swim to bike training. So it becomes part of the brick session. But we do that at least once a week in season, and sometimes we'll go practice mounting and dismounting the bike as well separately once a week as well. But in one session you can get up to 30 or 40 mounts and dismounts at once, so it really becomes quite natural.
That is some dedication. And you say, you know, you can hear people cheering and stuff around here. How much are you able to take that in? Because actually you're probably so focused on getting that wetsuit off, doing all the other stuff, that can you really absorb the crowds?
This particular bit, no. You focus on what you have to do. There are certainly bits a bit further on where I'll tell you all about what the crowd's like.
Oh, well, let's go and see them. I mean, I've just walked up here and I'm out of breath. This is where you guys did and will be doing the cycle. How difficult is it? Sam, I know you practice it, but it must be quite tough.
Yeah, it is. Straight out of transition as well. So you've got to pick the right gear so that you start the bike ride in the correct gear for this big hill.
And does as much practice go into that, just finding the right gear, as everything else?
Yeah, about a week before the race, I came here on my own just one evening and made sure that I knew which was the correct gear to go. So I practiced running, jumping on my bike, riding up this hill. Helps have home field advantage.
Wow. And what about you, Claire? How did you find this bit?
Yeah, even though I was only doing the Go Try event, my club, we had arranged a night the week previous to come and have a little bit of a recce round the run and the cycle track. So we actually went up the hill on the other side. So again, just had to make sure I was in the right gear before I set off.
I have so much respect for you guys, because genuinely, having walked up here, I cannot imagine what that must be like, having come out of the water. And for you at this point last year, you were leading, Sam. Can you just explain what that situation was and what was going on?
Yeah, so it was quite complicated, but it's still a team race as well. At that point, Leeds was before the Olympics, so Olympic points and qualification to get 3 men at the Olympics was at the front of British Triathlon's priority list. So for myself, I was domestiquing, we call it, but looking after one of our other riders. And for me to go off the front was a card we had to play, so that it forced the other nations to chase me down and hopefully tire them out, so that our lads could run a bit faster and do better in the race.
It's very clever, that. I understand it, you know, because you've explained what is quite a complex thing in quite a simple way. Does it offer a different kind of pressure then when you're doing that?
Yes, it does, but also no, it doesn't, because it does take the pressure off. For me, the race finished at the end of the bike, so I could go full beans, and obviously cheer the crowd up as well, because they thought a Brit was leading. But yeah, it does.
They
take
were
the
leading,
off.
Sam. They were.
And my good friend Alex won the whole race in the end, so it was a win-win.
And for you, Claire, it was different because this wasn't going to be the end of the race for you. What were you thinking at this point?
The bike, I actually really enjoyed the bike ride. Saw so many people around the course. There was cowbells cheering. It was fantastic. A few tight corners, but it was really good. And then getting into transition for the run, again, round the park with all the support, it was fantastic.
What does that support look like here, Sam? In this, because obviously right now there's just us three, really.
Yeah.
But what does it look like during that event?
So it was completely different. It was just channels of noise. You had 2 barriers on either side, and then you had about 3 people deep, just cheering you on. You had cowbells, you had cheering, and you could just pick people out that you knew as well, because it's also my hometown race. It really was a once in a lifetime kind of experience.
Right then, guys, let's talk running, because you know then it's coming towards the end. It's on the horizon somewhere. What are you feeling at that moment?
A lot of pain, to be honest, a lot of lactate and a lot of pain. But it's, you know, you've done the swim, you've done the bike, and you've just got that last little push of the run, and then it's all over. Does
Knowing that it is kind of the last little push help, Claire?
Oh, definitely. For me, I so enjoyed the swim last year. Felt really strong on the cycle. And the run is normally my worst part, but I really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of that was down to the crowd, down to the encouragement, marshals even encouraging, and the whole venue, the whole park was buzzing.
Especially after the year that we'd had. Sam, it must have been lovely for you to be able to be doing what you love in front of a crowd.
It was, and you mentioned it there, after the COVID year, to be able to get a crowd into Roundhay Park. There were a limited number of tickets, but you couldn't really tell when you were racing because it felt like everyone was here. To have that support again after such a long absence was brilliant.
How much does it mean to you? Because look, there's going to be even more people this year. How much does it mean to you, Claire, when you come and you do give up a lot of time to something like this, to have that support?
Oh, I think it's vital. I think any sport obviously is good for your health. It's good for your mental health and good for your physical health. And I think having that encouragement to do that, it's such a massive boost. It's such a good feel-good factor afterwards. And I think, I think it's something that everyone would benefit from.
And Sam, you're very process orientated. You love what you do and you love the process. But how much joy do you get out of this moment where you're going, wow, I can actually hear people saying my name, people are cheering me on at this moment?
It's pretty incredible, to be honest. People you haven't met, or friends that you've known for a very long time, or family that come to watch, whoever's cheering you on, if they're cheering you on, there's something special as well. And to have that GB flag on your tri-suit, everyone around here loves that. For a home race, it really is a special, and that's why Leeds is for me, it's one of the biggest races on the calendar.
It is, and do you know what? Leeds is the home of triathlon, really, isn't it? How fortunate do you feel being from York to have it on your doorstep?
Very fortunate, to be honest, very fortunate. We're lucky that we've had such great pathfinders in the sport, all the way back from the very early triathlons that happened, all the way up to Alan John really putting Yorkshire and Leeds on the map. And that's a big reason why the race is here. And I'm lucky that I'm able to carry that torch forward and hopefully keep it in Leeds for many years to come.
I mean, is that your goal then? You want to make sure that you keep progressing and doing it for Leeds?
Absolutely. Leeds has given so much to me. It's only right to give so much back when I can. So to be that kind of, I don't want to say next name, but to be another of one of the great triathletes to come out of Leeds would be phenomenal.
Incredible. Well, you're well and truly on your way, aren't you? And Claire, for you, obviously we can talk about the race physically when you're here doing this, but for you, mentally, what has triathlon given to you?
Well, I'm a mum of 2, I work, we've got a family life, and this gives me the little bit of me time for me. I enjoy the training, I enjoy the events, and I think it just shows that you can have the extreme, you can have the elite athletes, and you can have other people that are just doing it just purely for the enjoyment of the sport. I think having 3 disciplines, for someone like me, it helps you avoid injuries, and it just gives you that variation.
And Sam, you're a huge mental health advocate. You are you talk about the fact that it's really important to talk. How much has triathlon helped you?
It's helped me. It has helped me a great deal, to be honest. And I've also seen how it can help people around me too, with mental health. The more we can talk about it, the better it is all round. And yeah, I think sport and exercise, I know Claire might hopefully second this, is a real, it releases so many endorphins. It's a big dopamine hit, especially maybe after it, not during it sometimes. But that feeling you get after finishing a park run, finishing an open water swim, you can share it with other people as well. You can talk to loads of people, maybe people you haven't met before, and just all sharing the excitement of doing sport. And I think it's brilliant for the community.
Do you feel a level of responsibility that comes with your platform to offer, almost help people by saying it is good to talk?
Absolutely. The more we can get the message out, the better, and using whatever platforms we can. We all have platforms, some bigger than others, but if everyone's sharing a positive message, then we're definitely making steps towards becoming a more inclusive and well-rounded community.
Right then, guys, should we head over to the finish line and see where the final bit of action happens? So, Sam, Claire, this is where it's all over now. How are you feeling at this point at the finish line?
Certainly very fatigued, I'd imagine, but yeah, it's just a mixture because it depends on how you've done. You could be elated, you could be slightly disappointed, but really, probably an overarching emotion of relief that it's finally over.
And Claire, how were you feeling when it was all over after your first triathlon?
Yeah, my first open water triathlon, it was amazing. I was buzzing. We had a massive ramp to run up, straight through the finish, and yeah, I was buzzing. I was thinking about this coming year when I finished, because I thought, I've done the Go Try, right, next year I'll go for the sprint.
Hang on, so as soon as you got over, that was the first thing you were thinking?
I thought, I was on such a high. I just thought, yeah, I want to do this again.
Wow. And what about you, Sam? Do you allow yourself to relish in your achievements, or do you straight away go on to the next?
I think we've probably give it that evening to enjoy it, and especially if the team's done well or you've done well individually. But certainly the very next day, you're straight onto how can I recover the best and get myself in the physical best shape for the next race to come.
If it was me, I would be milking it for about 2 weeks. I'd be throwing a party to celebrate that I'd done it. What does recovery look like?
So actually, even before we've done the race, we're thinking about recovery. So I always pack an OT recovery bottle in my race pack, which I can then access straight after the finish line. So that goes down within sort of 10 minutes of finishing, so that you're already starting the recovery process straight after the end of the race. And then after, you might do a cool down on the bike, just to flush all the lactate out that you've accumulated. And then after that, it's making sure you get a good meal in that evening, and then hopefully an early bedtime.
The bit I like the sound of is the good meal. That's me. I'd join you for that bit. How did you feel? What were you thinking, and how did you recover after you'd finished?
Coffee and cake.
Yes!
Coffee and cake. I had my medal around my neck, just grabbed my kit, had a walk around the park, and yeah, it was, yeah. I don't have to have the same sort of post-race routine. Yeah, it was just enjoying the atmosphere.
Did you have anyone here at the finish line that you knew?
Yeah, there was some others from our club that were also competing, so it was just cheering other people on, watching the Tri-Stars as well. That was amazing, just seeing the young ones coming through. Yeah, it's exciting to see the kids racing so hard. There'll be certainly some future stars there.
That's a huge thing, actually, the inclusivity of this sport. And I don't think it's something that people are that aware of, Sam, but how important is it to you that this sport is inclusive, that it's not just for elites?
Yeah, it is something that's often talked about in triathlon, that is it so can anyone do it? But hopefully with Go Try, and you've experienced this, that anyone can just give it a go. You can borrow a bike, you can do it on a mountain bike, a BMX, it doesn't really matter, but as long as you look into it, try and find a Go Try near you, or a taking part event, then anyone can give it a go.
As someone who has given it a go, Claire, what advice would you give to anyone who's watching this now going, oh, could I?
Go for it, definitely go for it. There's nothing to regret about it. You know, the benefits outweigh anything that you could say negative. You're exercising, you're out in fresh air, you're meeting people. It's fantastic.
Right, guys, can we just run as if we're running across the finish line? Is that all right?